Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the second in a series of financial presentations sponsored by the Association for Black Economic Power, where the Executive Director, Deborah Hurston, is leading the charge. And tonight, we'll be taking a close look at the historical impact of Minnesota Black businesses, and we'll also explore the common challenges, the successes, and how they've navigated the Black tax. We have a sage group of presenters here tonight, including Nancy Gorsa, who is the founder, president, and CEO of Black Business Enterprise. Nancy also hosts the popular Black Business Enterprise podcast entitled she hosts the annual Black Business Ball. Welcome. Also with us this evening is Mr. James Holmes Jr. He is a published author and principal of the five S corporations, Black Lion Companies, a nonprofit and a think tank. And James is also a board member of the Association for Black Economic Power. Also joining us this evening is Mr. Abel Ebani. He is the chairman of the Minnesota Black Chamber of Commerce. We're glad to have you with us this evening. And you'll also should know that he is also an insurance specialist. Also on our panel this evening is Mr. Vachel Hudson of Rich, advocate and workshops, forums host, including financial literacy, home ownership, and education at the Black-owned First Independent Bank. And also, I believe we got all of our panelists all outlined this evening. Welcome to everyone and welcome to you for being with us this evening. Let's get started. Our title tonight is Minnesota Black Businesses. Are they thriving or are they simply surviving? According to Sean Rochester, author of The Black Tax, African Americans spend less than 2% of their combined $1.2 trillion on Black enterprises. We're wondering why this is happening and what you would suggest Black businesses do to break the pattern. So as we start this evening with the devastating aftermath of George Floyd, the communities and the city pledged to show support by buying Black, supporting Black, and opening doors for Black faces. We're now approaching the 3-year anniversary, and we're wondering how the commitments have been kept. Let's pose that question first to Nancy Gorsa. You have a background in aviation and banking. How do you think we've been doing? Have these commitments been kept, Nancy?
Well, it's been tumultuous couple of years. I mean, that's all I can say. And I want to say shout out to all my BBE members that came to watch today. So it's been a rough few years. I don't feel like we've kept our promise even to ourselves. You know, many of us have said, why would it take for a man to be murdered for anything to change? Why does it take for someone to lose their life? But we also have to ask that to ourselves. You know, since that's happened, are we still buying Black? It starts at home. Are we still also keeping our own promises? I don't care what anyone else doing outside of us. Are we doing what we are supposed to do? And are we keeping our own promises? So no, I do feel like it's dwindled down extremely. You know, I run over 163 Facebook group where we push that daily. Hey, buy Black. We allow businesses to advertise. And so far, the businesses, they've said it themselves that it just continues to decline. So that's us, because these are Black group. We are also not keeping that promise. We have to do it internally before we ask anyone else to do it externally.
Thank you, Nancy. And tonight, I should remind everyone, we're going to be looking for solutions. And I hope you hear those solutions this evening. James Holmes Jr., the same question. Have we been keeping the commitments of buying Black?
I wish I could say that we have been. Unfortunately, we don't have a passing grade in that regard. I will, however, acknowledge the spotlight that George Floyd and other incidents like that have actually shined on it, because it does at least make more people aware And that's the first thing is people have to be aware. So much of it is a mindset. It's a mindset in our people in the African-American community. We have been conditioned for 400 years to dislike ourselves, to think that we're less of ourselves, to think that our businesses are less. It takes some time and some effort and a lot of intentionalities to actually start to change those habits. We will make inroads, but so far, it's still a lot of work to do.
I see. Abel Abani, the city pledged to show their support to us by buying Black, supporting Black, opening doors for Black faces. Where are we? Have those commitments been kept?
All right, thank you. And I just want to say thank you for having me here today to share my thoughts on this important and well overdue conversation, because we need to be having these conversations within our community to make sure that we're resurfacing these problems and saying, hey, a lot has not been done. We've made a lot of promises and those promises have not been kept. Going back to what Nancy just said about internally, what are we doing to ourselves or within our community to make sure that we're addressing those? So we start to see some traction, but it's not really what it should be, because we know all the promises that were made after George Floyd was murdered. We were hoping to see a more galvanized investment into our community, but we haven't really seen that. So I'm not going to be the one to give them a pat, to give us ourselves and our stakeholders a pass here. I'm going to say there is a lot more work that needs to be done for us to start seeing those tangible results that we're after.
Rachel Hudson, do you agree with that statement?
I absolutely agree with that statement, as well as the other statements of the panelists. From a banking perspective, before I get into that, actually, I want to say, when it comes to us eating out, when it comes to us coming together, I can say that we are emphasizing meeting at Black-owned restaurants, Black-owned spaces. That's something that I have personally seen, and people in my network have been emphasizing the space that they're occupying, where they're spending their money, especially at the Black-owned restaurants. However, when it comes to businesses, I asked this question the other night at Nancy's event. I asked how many folk in that room had on Black-owned designer clothes or Black-owned merchandise in general. Not that many people raised their hands. And when you look at some of the times that when we wear our clothes and we express ourselves through fashion, sometimes it's being expressed through luxury designer brands that someone in our community did not come up with, has not made. But so I definitely agree that we're not doing it at the rate that we should be, but you do see those small emphasis of people being disintentional with how they're spending their money. And I just wanted to add from a banking perspective, with First Independence Bank, being here in the Twin Cities area now, you can see that small promise from 5 of the largest banks here in Minnesota is being seen, is being sought through. However, there's still work to do on our end as well, making sure that we're able to, be that answer for what this community actually needs, especially when it comes to Black businesses.
Thank you so much for that. And you mentioned something about the Black dollar turning over, not those exact words, but I mentioned at the outset that we as Black folks, African Americans, if you will, spend less than 2% of our combined income, 1.2 trillion, I believe the number is, on Black enterprises. But what do you think we need to do to break this cycle and spend more? I mean, 1% more, Vachel, could really have a really big impact on America. What do you say to that?
Great point, great question. I think that $1.2 trillion spending data point is something that we really need to dig a little bit deeper into. Goes back to what I just mentioned. If we're spending that much money, but our assets are going down, so we're not investing in real estate, we're not investing in things that will be sustainable. So I do believe that one of the things I do try to do is make sure that folk are realizing what time we're in right now. Having a Black-owned bank in a state like Minnesota is unheard of, and it's something that we can really take advantage of as a Black community by utilizing our dollars, utilizing the bank as the resource. For example, every dollar that is deposited into the bank's able to loan out $9 after that. So imagine if we're putting those deposits into the bank, which we do have a $1 million deposit challenge going on right now as well. Imagine every single dollar is getting put into the bank, but in return, we're able to do when it comes to supporting businesses, supporting homeownership, and things like that for our community specifically.
Really interesting point, Nancy. I've been watching you nodding as the points were being made by Vaishal. What do you say?
Well, I work with a lot of small Black-owned businesses, and when we when we talk about we are true consumers. We are the top #1 consumers. I mean, I'm just gonna talk about myself, the beauty industry. And today I am wearing all black. My hair is by Shalina Bundles. My shirt is by Queen Trades It All. We are consumers. Now I take a lot of pride in keeping my dollars in the Black community. But if we are extremely honest, on the day-to-day, we're living on Amazon. On the day-to-day, we are living at Target. On the day-to-day, we are throwing those dollars to other communities, especially beauty products. And if we're very honest with ourselves, we have a Black-owned bank. If we're very honest with ourselves, day-to-day, we are not spending those dollars. And yes, we could use those dollars to increase our capita, but there's no real solution until people say, hey, I'm going to trade these 10 items that I use every day and make sure that they're Black. Until people say that and actually do that, I have consciously done that. And I'm realizing, hey, okay, sometimes the price is a little higher. So, okay, that means I need to help them find a better supplier so that they can actually sell their products at a decent price, right? That everyone can afford. I mean, that's just the truth. Unfortunately, sometimes people have to have higher prices because they just don't have the capital to buy in bulk in larger quantities. So we need to day-to-day replace some items, and instead of running to Target, run to our local stores because they do exist. We have a directory with 72,000 Black-owned businesses from 22 states, right? So I don't want to hear we don't have it. It's out there. So it takes for us to make very conscious decisions and actually take action on them.
As we're expanding on this question, James Holmes Jr., it seems as if at the outset we were hearing that the city wasn't coming through on its commitment, but I'm also hearing that African Americans are not living up to our commitment as well by buying Black.
Yes, Freddie, you're absolutely correct. You're correct on the first question, and you're also correct on the second question. At $1.2 trillion annually is what African Americans spend. What does that tell us? That tells us that there is our solution. We have enough. We just have to do better with what we have. We are head and shoulders the largest consumer ethnic group. It's not even close. It's not even close over any other groups. Why is it attractive for other, ethnic groups to come in and own in the Black neighborhoods? You can go down Broadway and you can see Jewish owners, Asian owners, Arab owners, all of that. And think about what happens here is that we go in and we buy those products, we spend some of our dollars there, those dollars leave our community and they don't return. So that's part of the issue is ownership. Ownership will always be an issue. And the fact of the matter is we just don't own enough. We own less than 1% of things that can be owned in the United States. So that's a big problem in itself. And also even statewide and citywide, there have been promises made. Right now, Minnesota's sitting on roughly, depending on the data that you look at, $17 billion in a surplus. Now, the governor is saying all the right things now, but let's just see if he's going to act upon that. I'll reserve judgment, until then. So far, he's been saying the right things, but every time I drive down Broadway, I don't see much changing.
Generally, we've been speaking about buying Black, but I'm wondering, Mr. Ibani, where do we start? What is the most important area of growth in our Black community that needs to be pushed forward? James kind of touched on it. He says ownership. What do you say? What needs to be pushed to the front lines for success?
So ownership is one thing. We can start with that, but we know all the challenges that come with ownership. And I would say the easiest way for us to do this is going to be because we're consumers. We have something trillion that you're citing there. That's a really tremendous buying power. We have to leverage that. And how do we do that? It's going to be going to a local Black-owned restaurant, spending money there. And it boils down to awareness and intentionality. Awareness is something we probably know that we need to spend it, but we need to teach ourselves what the ramifications of you spending $1 in the community, what would that look like? If I spent $1 in a Black-owned restaurant, that means they'll be able to pay their wages, and research upon research have shown that Black-owned businesses tend to hire more Black folks. And when you hire more Black folks, that means we're returning that money back into our community. So awareness is that piece. Then we have intentionality. We really have to make sure that when you get your paycheck, you be intentional about where you're going to spend at least $10. I can take an example. I like fruit. So I went to North St. Paul. There's a new grocery store in North St. Paul called Mo's grocery store. I think that's what the name is. So I get in there, I'm looking for guavas. Guess what? The cashier is Asian. The supplier is Asian. Person sweeping the floor is Asian. Everyone there is Asian. That's how the money stays in the community. Let's support each other. It doesn't have to be spending $1 million. Even if it's $1, spend it in the community. The ramifications of that money that you're spending in the community will amplify if we all do it collectively.
So Nancy, is that where we start?
That's exactly where we start. And actually, if I can pose a question to everyone. So I have Michael Franks here. He does taxes. How many of you are using TurboTax this year and not using a local accountant or local tax person? I have to pose that question. You know, we have Rashonda Scott here, Coach Jackie. We have MyBank, who is actually using people that have businesses that are Black owned right now in all areas of our lives, you know, shout out to y'all. But if we look, you know, my doctor's Black, my dentist is Black. I have some areas now, like I can't find a Black OB that works for me to save my life, but that's how we start. That's how we start. And, you know, if I can expand on that with the Freddie, the event that I just had, I had a Somali speaker and she said, yeah, we take care of each other. If somebody needs $100,000 for a building, they're all doing a susu, they call it. They all do a collection within the Somali community and come up with $100,000 within a month for that person. We need to be able to do that for us, because the outside doesn't care that I'm African, you're African American. They'll all see us as Black. But if we actually put our money, our dollars together and keeping it in the community, we could all band together and buy all these places that we supposedly don't have. So that's where we start, Freddie. Sorry, didn't mean to hijack that, but.
No, it's about the conversation, and that's why we're here this evening. We're talking about, are we thriving or are we just surviving? James, you mentioned ownership. Can you expand on that a bit? You brought that out as a solution, but there are some folks who are saying, I've been renting for my entire life from someone who doesn't look like me.
Well, there are some basic tenets as far as wealth accumulation, as far as creating generational wealth. And first of all, it's ownership in any and everything that you can own. Property, real estate, obviously that's important. Business, that's important. Investing is also a major thing. That's something that's often overlooked. We have the resources, we have the monies. We just have to be better stewards. That's a start. Elijah Muhammad, once said, do for self. And it still comes back to that. We're going to have to do for self, because you can teach a person, or you can give a person a fish, they'll eat one day. But if you teach them to fish, then they'll be able to feed themselves for the rest of their lives, and they're self-reliant. So in essence, that's what we need to do, is we need to be aware. We have to have the mindset of creating new habits. And those habits are to actually stand on our own 2 feet and be as self-reliant as we can, and each one reach one. That's all of our responsibility, is to pay it forward. Now, every other ethnic group does this, and it's considered normal. When we do it, it's considered racist. Think about it. If we say, oh yeah, we got to have a Black accountant, we got to do business with just other Black businesses, let me pose this to you. Go to Chinatown or go to Little Italy and try to open up an establishment there and see what happens.
Wow, some great insights this evening. And we have a representative from Independence Bank, clearly a Black-owned bank. What responsibilities does a Black-owned bank have to the community in educating people the value of buying Black and just making sure that that wealth stays in our community?
Yes, sir. It's extremely important. We understand that we had to start with the basics. You know, we had to reach the folk who are unbanked, folk who need to be rebanked, folk who just may have no sense of financial literacy, no sense of fiscal responsibility at all. You know, we can't just come into this market and focus on those who are already middle class, those who already have a sense of how to manage their funding and their money. So we have to be diligent with who we're interacting with and making sure that they're reaching some of those folk who fell through the cracks years ago, decades ago, in order for us to really collectively move the needle when it comes to Black wealth. As far as home ownership goes, same thing. It's important that we, have those conversations with people, meeting them where they are, going into those neighborhoods, going into those apartment buildings, going into the neighborhood associations where folk who are renters are, and they may or may not be mortgage ready, but how do we start sparking those conversations and planting those seeds in their minds now, so that in a year or two, when their finances get better, when they're able to save up some money after working with somebody like myself, for example, they're able to move into a home. But if we're not doing our due diligence, we're making sure that we're going into those communities where the lowest of the incomes, those with the toughest barriers are, to really be able to plant those seeds, in addition to meeting the folk who are already may not be ready, but 3 to 6 months to a year they're there. We have to make sure that we're reaching all of them when it comes to ownership. Someone may not be able to own a house, but they can purchase a life insurance policy sooner. It's much less, right? So it's about education. It's about, being able to exploit and empower folk when it comes to how we can take advantage of these tools and the resources that are out there. So I think that is real key, not just with the banks, but also folks who hold these individual titles and roles in their communities as well.
Nancy, I'll go back to you. You're vigorously shaking your head as if you were approving about that. So are you affirming that there's a greater responsibility for Black-owned institutions to take the lead in encouraging buying Black?
Absolutely. I love my brothers. I love every word they speak is true, right? There is a great responsibility, but I want to go a little step beyond that. I consider myself a Black institution. I'm not a bank, but if I am fully educated, I feel like I also have the responsibility. If my credit is right, I have ownership, I need to look at the person next to me and say, hey, can I fix, which is what I've been doing. Can I fix your credit? Can we get into your house? So we are all Black institutions. In my mind, if you're doing well and you know the path, by God, you need to speak up and say, hey, brother, let me hold your hand and let's go through this together. And that is the mindset that we all, I believe, need to adopt, because what is an institution? We need to understand that we cannot wait for anyone to do it for us, and that we need to take over at all times. We cannot wait for someone to move the needle for us. We need to be the needle and move ourselves. So if all of us are educated here, sit someone down and say, let me help you get there, because I want to own the whole block. I want to own the whole city. So how do we do that collectively?
We're talking about thriving or surviving. Abel, I was just looking at you and there's a huge smile on your face. Talk about the role that mentorship plays in Black business development. And you've got some deep roots in this space.
Absolutely. I believe mentorship is really important, especially if we're trying to build something that's sustainable. We have to learn from someone who's been there, done it, and got the t-shirt, as it's commonly said. And we firmly believe in mentorship at the chamber. And that's why, if you look at the services that we offer to our members, we have the high impact mentorship program. What that is meant to do is to pair you, the mentee, up with the mentor based on your specific needs. So when you come through the pipeline, we identify your specific needs that you have, pair you up with someone who's been there, done it. Then at the end of the mentorship relationship, we give you $5,000. We want to give you more, but we give you $5,000. What that's going to do is it's giving you the technical assistance that you need, and also giving you the financial assistance that you might need. And you'll see that our entrepreneurs don't need a lot, because if we have a lot, we will be a force for tremendous good. Just look at what $5,000 can do. One of the mentees that we have going through the program took $5,000 and was able to secure a contract with financial advisory firms in Minnesota. Just look at what $5,000 can do. So if we can give them $100,000, you can imagine what the results would be. So I firmly believe in mentorship, and I always encourage our entrepreneurs to seek for mentoring. Find someone who's been there, someone who's doing something that you want to do, and learn from them. Reduce that learning time, or you have to stay from that learning curve a little bit so we can accelerate your growth and success.
I'm seeing people in the chat saying, I want to be a part of that program. And I hope that you'll leave us ways that we can get in contact with you to really move that needle forward. And James, you've got 5 corporations. It seems like you are the mentor extraordinaire.
Freddie, that's something that I take a lot of pride in. I actually worked in the corporate industry for over 36 years, went independent 4 years ago, largely because in order for people to actually understand that they have the capability of doing it, they got to see it. They got to see it being done by someone that looks like them. So I was intentional as far as doing it so that it could be seen. But at the same time, if you go to my website, blacklionfoundation.com, everything we're talking about here, I've already addressed. I have a YouTube channel that has seminars, webinars, instructions from lawyers, accountants, you name it, on all the subject matters. I've written books on all the subject matters, including home ownership, setting up your business. The resources I've been putting there, a good part of it, Freddie, is just that people need to know that they're there. And that's why that this is a great show, and it's a great format, because some of the work is being done, but a lot of times people don't know behind the scenes that we're all kind of like ducks. We're looking calm on the surface, but underneath we're all pedaling real hard for the benefit of the collective.
I'll put that same question in front of you, Nancy. What role does mentorship play? And I know that you've helped a lot of people. I've read the document.
So of course, mentorship, it's invaluable. You know, I find that the people that succeed, like Shantina here in the audience, Rashonda, Jacqueline, they always look for somebody. Hey, I need you to sit down with me and tell me what I need to do. But it takes for someone to actually get up and say, I need help. I think one of the biggest flaws sometimes that we have, and please forgive me if I misspeak, but with the Black businessmen, they've been so villainized that now they don't even want to ask for help sometimes. So that's why I'm so grateful for the James Holmes of this world, and the Freddie Bells and Rachel, Abel, Benson, that can, you know, be that figure for someone to perhaps show up and say, I need help. But right now, Black business women are one of the largest. I mean, they're growing businesses like crazy, but I'm also realizing that they're not asking for help. They're telling you, Nancy, I need you, sit down and teach me something. And I'm really loving seeing that. So, and just remember that once you do get mentored, do that for someone else, because it only helps you grow. So I encourage everyone in this audience, because a lot of us are stretched so thin as you know. Do that for someone else. Whatever you learn, pour into someone else. Just right before this call, one of you sent me a grant that closes tomorrow. And she's like, I just found it. And then she shared it. Do that for someone else. Spread the word. We're not doing the crabs in the barrel. We're breaking that curse. Continue to spread it, continue to mentor and pour knowledge into people.
So as we pour this knowledge into people, Vaishal, how do we move from having this business idea to making it a reality? There's a chasm there. How do we bridge that?
Appreciate that. As somebody like myself, if I hear someone who has a business idea, just like I did the other day at Taste of Rondo in St. Paul, I kind of connected with what he wanted to do with people who are already doing it, right? And just so happened, those folk that are already doing it were just there in that room at that venue as well. So I immediately made the connection, and then I gave him a couple of follow-up steps to do. I said, you need to come up with a name, you need to incorporate it with the state, and then come back and talk to me so that I can let you know where to start applying for grants. And then who else to get connected to, like the METAs, the NEONs, these organizations who are there to help with business consultation, whether you're a startup, whether you're a couple years in the running, whatever the case it may be, there are organizations that are out there. The Black Chamber of Commerce is also a resource. So it's really, again, it goes back to that mentorship standpoint. Even though I'm lifting as I climb, I still want to make sure that I'm sharing that information, sharing those resources, connecting people to each other who either have the same business ideas, same concepts, have already done it before, or who can drop more gems that I may not be able to drop because they're expert in that work.
Abel, tell me how to move that business idea to reality. There are some people here, I know I'm one of those. I'm systematic. I need step 1. I need step 2, step 3. Oh, I need to go back to 1A. Help me.
Okay, so you're a prime example of the people that need to actually do it. So what I usually say when I have the privilege of speaking in front of people, when the team lets me do it, I usually say, you will never have a perfect business plan, right? Mm-hmm. It's better for you to start with an imperfect business plan and iterate along the way, as opposed to just waiting when you have the right business plan and the perfect timing for you to jump in. You can go from idea to execution by just talk to people. We're talking about mentorship here. If you don't ask, you will never know what the answer is. And the answer is always going to be no. So you need to reach out to people. Like Nancy is doing a fantastic job from an individual standpoint, what she's doing with entrepreneurs before they even start working on their businesses, fixing their credits. The first time I learned about the work that she was doing, I was amazed. So that's one avenue. Reach out to the Nancy, reach out to us. We will help you. If we don't have the resources, we can establish that connection with someone that can help you. And one of the challenges that we also see when someone goes from conceptualizing an idea, a business idea, to executing it is, I was sleeping last night and a business idea popped in my head. You have to make sure that even though I say just start, there are some fundamentals that have to be true. The solution, the product or service that you're providing has to be a solution to someone. Yep. If you're familiar with the acronym SAVE, the research by the Harvard Business School that redefined what SAVE means is the S stands for solution. So you have to be able to provide a solution to a specific problem. If you do that, you'll find someone who's going to value what you're doing and you can get to execution. Then the A stands for access. As you're providing that solution, how do we get to you? So is it going to be online? Is it a brick and mortar store? How do we access your solution? Then the next thing is going to be value. What value are you bringing by you providing that solution to me? If I have a 10,000 business problem, are you providing $100,000 value to me by me paying you that $10,000? Then education is another key piece. You have to educate people on what your solution is. That way they know how to reach you, how to use your product. And the last thing I can say here is every time I get a chance to talk about building a business, I always talk about building a tribe. It's not my idea, but I wholeheartedly believe that that's what's going to take us to the next level. We need to build a tribe instead of trying to build a group of customers, because the customer is going to buy from you because they're trying to maximize their buck. If you don't deliver, they're gonna go away. But what the tribe is gonna do to you is the tribe is going to buy from you. The tribe is going to advocate for you. The tribe is going to buy for aunts, uncles, family, friends. When you're not delivering, the tribe will come back to you and say, hey, you're not delivering, but in public, we're praising you, we're supporting you. And I believe that's where we all need to be.
So we've just built this business, James. So we've gone from the ideation, we've got it, we've got the tribe helping us, as Abel just so eloquently said, but now we run into some challenges. We've got to get through that first year hump. What happens? What takes the steam out? What are some of the hurdles at that point?
You know, every business is a little different. They're almost like snowflakes or fingerprints. Yes, yes. They're all a little different. However, there are some common themes that I have been seeing after the first year, that if you're not careful, they can trip you up. Accounting is one that seems to be a constant theme. Taxes. These are things that I would recommend that you think about before it's a problem. In other words, you know you're going to have to pay taxes. So many people go into these businesses, and it's very idealistic, and I understand that, and I think that that's wonderful. But you got to know about 1/3 of that roughly is going to go toward taxes, and so have a plan for that. It's discouraging the amount of people that we see tripped up from things like that. And there are good accountants around there, and there actually are good African-American accountants out there that do very good work. So that's something that I would say would be a forefront: accounting and taxes, things like that. Document preparation, just making sure that your T's are crossed, your I's are dotted, because you don't want to put in all of that creative work and all those hours of hard work just to be tripped up by red tape, and things like that. That would be, just a quick little tidbit that I'd offer, Freddie.
Makes sense, but I'm watching Nancy, and Nancy, I don't know why I'm gravitating to you like this, but it's interesting. So I'm getting all my I's dotted, my T's crossed, if you just said, James, but I hear this person say, Nancy, I don't have a storefront. I'm doing well. Why do I need to go through all of this? Why do I have to go to Barry Rogers Accounting? Why do I have to do all this? I'm doing okay. Why do I have to give all this money back to the government? I'm just trying to survive out here.
Oh, I'm so glad that I fell into this, because I'm actually currently working with a very nice Black-owned trucking company who's making $3 million a year, cannot get a single dollar in loans because he didn't have an accountant. His taxes are a mess. And yes, he's making $3 million in profit in about 1/3 because he's one of the drivers, but he can't get any money because his back office is a mess.
Mm-hmm.
So it just goes to show you, and I want to make sure this hits home. If you start a business and your full intent is to leave your 9 to 5, if you do not get an accountant once you start making money, because y'all be making money, see it, I walk with you. So if you do not believe in yourself and in your business, right? Because there's actually even nonprofits that will do your accounting for free. There's software now that will do the accounting automatically. So you may not believe enough in the business, right? Because if you know you're going to need capital, which you will, to expand your business, then you know that you will need to have some type of accounting. We like to cut a lot of corners. We cut a lot of corners, unfortunately. So we really have to go back to point A, hence why when people come to me with a newborn business, I immediately sit them down and shut it down. Sit down and let's figure out if this is 100% viable and is 100% what you want to do. Because if you just live in, deposit by deposit, and you're not actually making a sustainable income to pay yourself, is that really a viable business? And if I can just add a little bit to it, if you're looking at government spending, African Americans in 2021 only got the 3% out of $670 billion of government contracts, 3%, while whites were 70%. Make it make sense. Why are we opening just boutiques and, the little stuff, when we could be going for some of the bigger pie? We're always going the safe route. The safe route is never going to really get you out of poverty. It's never really going to build that generational wealth. So if I can go back to what Freddie was saying, when you want to bring out an idea, think about a need, not a want. Because if it's a want, you're always going to have to bank on people wanting your product. But also look at what's out there already. Grants.gov. What are they looking for that they want to pay people for? I'm going to look at that, where the money is going, and I'm going to apply for that. I'm going to create a business based on how much money is out there that they want to give me.
Makes sense. So Vaishal, how do we become more financially literate? You do some work in that space.
Thank you for that. Well, starting with the youth, it starts at home. We have to get back to having those family dinners at the kitchen table and having those conversations about things like our finances, our credit, things like our grandmother, our patriarchies, our matriarchies are passing away, and whether or not that generational wealth is being passed down, and what we need to do about it, how do we reverse that? So it really, I would say, it starts in the households. Within our families, at the same time as community members, as community leaders, as business leaders, as folk who want to see other people do well in their businesses. It starts with us, being a resource, creating space, comfortable, safe spaces. We know people don't really like to talk about their finances. They're very uncomfortable, especially if someone doesn't look like them when it comes to talking about, going bankrupt, losing assets and things of that nature. So we have to make sure that the spaces we're providing, so in order to even learn or, create a way to improve our finances, it has to be welcoming, it has to be comfortable. In addition to that, it goes back to making sure that institutions, again, like First Independence Bank, is being intentional with their partnerships, such as Operation Hope, partnerships with organizations like PPL and other nonprofits who do those housing, coaching, and counseling and advising around not just home ownership, but also your budget, also just not being on the verge of being evicted and things of that nature. So I will say that it's going to take everyone, from the parents to the youth, to be interested, to organizations who serve adults, who serve low-income families, who serve youth, to make sure that they're bringing in these resources to expose those their attendees and their participants to these resources as well. In addition to the institutions, it's going to take us to the wherewithal and the intentionality to make sure that whatever we're bringing into the community is something that folk are able to comprehend, access, and meet them where they are. Again, it's important that we're not recreating the wheel, that we're not just here as a beacon of hope, but we're also being intentional with actionable resources and opportunities for people to really be able to fiscally become more responsible in general. So I would say from a personal standpoint, I am doing my best to do exactly what I said earlier, is really reaching those folk who are really, really not even thinking about their money right now, but they're struggling. They're trying to figure out how they're going to feed their kids, how they're going to put food on their table. It's really about being intentional, and it starts with us, those who may have the information, the resources, or the wherewithal.
Rachel, thank you very much. And James, I know that you have a deep knowledge in this area as well. And Rachel said something about generational wealth. So how can our community uplift these businesses? What can we do to support the businesses? I know we can go to the restaurants and so forth, but I get a feeling with the corporations that you set up that it goes even deeper than that.
Is that for James or Rachel?
James.
Oh,
I'm
sure.
Holmes Jr.
Thank you. Let me just piggyback a little bit on the financial literacy, if I may, transition in front of it. Do you know that our financial habits start to get set as early as age 7? Were we aware of that? Is age 7. So starting our kids young is very, very, very important. So now I'll transition as far as the businesses and so forth, and it continues. And it continues in all of those categories, as far as budgeting, as far as knowledge, as far as information, and so forth. And I continue to go back to mindset, because it's almost like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Until we can satisfy the most basic needs of ourselves, our people, our young entrepreneurs, it's very, very difficult to look forward. It just really is. So a lot of the most basic things we still need to satisfy in the mindsets. We need to work on changing so many of the mindsets, because we have the resources. The knowledge has passed us by, oftentimes intentional. We can gain the knowledge now. And then once we actually gain the knowledge, then that's when we can be intentional as far as setting new positive habits.
All right. So Nancy, so how do we set those new positive habits when nothing has been there? I can't even save from paycheck to paycheck. And James here is talking about new positive habits. Where do we start?
I mean, this is why I'm so glad Arise is coming, right? Because, and everyone should think of doing their pledge. It's easy to say new habits, but if your parents don't even know anything about finances, that's going to be hard to even start at that infancy level, right? I believe the biggest solution would be, first things first, making sure that you have a budget. So that's habit number one, as James said. Just have a budget. I learned that most of my business owners are just living day by day and spending. They have no idea what their total business expenses for the months are. And that is very dangerous, because that it's so quick to spiral out of control. So making a budget, as we actually have free financial planner, Solange Collier at BBE, that would do a complete free financial budget without taking a penny. And I know the banks also have them. So just seeking those resources and sitting with someone, I know it's uncomfortable, but I don't know about you guys. In order for anything to be better, you have to be able to be open about it, whether it be credit, whether it be your balance. We're not stunting for anyone, okay? We just have to be who we are so that we can actually be better. So just seeking advice and fixing your relationship with money with yourself first, and eliminating that shame and that stigma, because this is systemic. It's not like you just put yourself there. This is systemic. It was built to put you and keep you poor. So it's a decision now to say, you know what, I refuse. And just get out there and be honest with yourself and allow people to help you out of it.
Abel Abani, is it that simple?
I mean, it's not as simple as we say. It's so easier to say than to do, but I believe that's where we need to start, right? The past is what the past has been. Now we have to embrace it and make sure that we're really reshaping the future. If you've had a bad relationship with money, we have resources available. Please reach out. Let us help you. Just be vulnerable. And I'm not speaking from a pedestal and saying I'm doing fine. I'm doing all well. I know a lot about finance. I learn about finance every day, every single day. I try to learn something. It's not on Wall Street. I learn about how rich people manage their money, what they spend money on. It's really finding that right track between expenses and revenue. Just let's continue helping each other. It goes back to education. Let's build a tribe together, a tribe that actually helps each tribe member.
Abel, let's stay with you just for a second. You said a couple of things, and I tell you what, if I keep listening to you all, we'll never get through with this tonight. So I've got to ask the question. I'm just curious about Black businesses. Someone had mentioned they try to get grants that really are consistent with what their businesses are doing. But how do you get exposure to these types of grants or contracts in the first place? How do you even avail yourself to those opportunities to support and build your business?
So that's a great question, and thank you for that. We're talking about resources that we have available here. if you don't, what we usually say at the chamber is, if you don't know where to go, you're starting a business, reach out to us. We can put you in contact with someone who has the right information for you. So if you're looking for a contract, the city has contract available and you want to bid on that contract, but you don't know what to do, please reach out to us. Right now, someone mentioned META and Neon. We're working on a project with META. It's going to be a project on a 5-year project. The intent behind that project is really to be able to measure results, because the attribute we're hearing out there is BIPOC. That really doesn't tell us anything about Black-owned businesses and Black entrepreneurs. That's a lazy way of saying we address that problem, so we can check the mark. Now we're working with META, and what we're doing is we're launching a project. It's going to be a 5-year project. We want to spend no less than $10 million over the next 5 years on Black-owned businesses. If you're starting, scaling, or you're trying to sustain your business, you're a good candidate for that. And if you're familiar with the Groundbreak Coalition, you probably hear about that here and there. It's because we're the execution arm of that. We're doing that. And something that also comes up when we hear conversations about bidding on contracts with the state is, well, we don't know who to reach out to make sure that we're answering to those RFPs. Well, Ascend at META, they have a program. They can actually help you do that. And if it's not working for you, please reach out to us. We're working with Excel to say, hey, if these entrepreneurs are not ready to get into the Ascend program, how can we create another mini Ascend program? It's not going to be called mini Ascend because that's a name owned by somebody else, but we're going to have another program with Excel that says we're going to work on supply diversity. How do we make sure that all of these businesses are certified and they are able to bid on city and state contracts so they can go after those big contracts that Nancy was talking about?
Abel is the chairman of the Minnesota Black Chamber of Commerce. Vachelle, how do we get exposure to these contracts that we just heard one solution? What's yours?
I think, well, can you repeat that question, Freddie? I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I understand it 100%.
Sure. We'd heard earlier about grants and some people building their businesses according to the grants they get. We just heard about META, where Dorothy Bridges is the brand new president. How do we get exposure as Black business to different opportunities? And I call them grants that could help to build and even sustain a business.
Yes, sir. So again, it goes back to making sure that whatever we're trying to build is a need and it's something that our community or someone in our market needs, and it's a solution to that need. So it could be, anything from hair products to, barbers, anything of that nature. As long as there's a need, as long as there's a market, you're able to find out a creative way to get people to buy, purchase from you, and to spend money with you. However, there's other ways that there's other things that we need to as small businesses when it comes to creativity, when it comes to making sure that our brand is out there, when it comes to being visible in the communities, as well as in the industry that we aim to be in. It's important that we're exposing not just ourselves to the industry, but others who are in those industries doing the work that we're doing, and how we could be a solution and how we could be an innovative way of doing something that has been done wrong in our personal lived experience, right? So taking our lived experience, taking our work experience, taking the solutions that we're bringing when it comes to our businesses to the areas where the problems are, exposing them, talking to community leaders, talking to legislators, talking to business leaders who might have something that they're missing. Business owners sometimes need help with marketing. We heard about business owners need help with finances, right? So how do we make sure that we're putting ourselves in front of those people so that they can be aware of our services and may potentially tap into them? And when it comes to the grants and things like that, I love grants because I do have a nonprofit, right? And it's important, again, when you have those type of businesses, that even if you're not a nonprofit, partnering with the fiscal agent that does serve the market or the clientele that you're looking to serve, being a solution, again, that fiscal agent might not provide a service, but you're able to say, hey, I could do this. And I feel like it's something that the people who come to you all for programming may need. And then just like that, you're able to partner with them, start to apply for different types of funding sources, whether you're a nonprofit or LLC. So it goes down to being aware and knowing where those funding sources are, knowing where those grants are, whether it's through the county, city, whether it's through the state, federal as well. And being able to actually expose whatever it is that we're trying to do, whatever the solution is, whatever the product is, whatever the service is, whatever the program is, being able to market it in a way where we're able to sell ourselves to break foot and break ground into those industries. When it comes to being able to get those type of contracts and things like that, if we're a small business trying to, again, get contracts or break into certain industries, I think that partnership with those folk who are already in those areas would be key, in addition to seeking creative, innovative ways to get funding as well.
Thank you, Michelle. We've talked a lot about how to get this business off the ground, James. You've done it several times. But if you were talking about starting that business, we're in the incubator, but what do you do when you don't know how to write a proposal? You don't know how to write a grant. Where do you, what's the name of the school we go to, James, to get that experience?
Well, I've thought about all of that, Freddie. I promise you. If you go to blacklionfoundation.com, you'll see it all, as well as if you go and go to Amazon, and I got one book called Financial Inclusion. You can pick that up, or Black Lion Financial Literacy. But I know we're short on time, Freddie, but before we go, I want to help somebody tonight, okay? One of my mentors, who didn't know he was a mentor, because he's a lot bigger than me, is John Hope Bryant. And so what I did was I started out by reading all of his books, okay, all of his books. And one day I actually came across him at the airport, couldn't believe it, all right? Almost fainted, right? Stopped him, told him that I read all his books and everything. He actually stopped and he had a little conversation with me. But before he finished that conversation, he left me with something that was tangible. And what he said to me is, he said, make sure you get your business minority certified. So that's the message I want to extend tonight, is if your business is not minority certified, get it minority certified. If you don't know how, there's a guy, I call him my secret weapon. His name is Mark Cooper. He's the director of procurement at the state of Minnesota. You call this man, he will help you. He'll walk you through all of those. And that makes you eligible for a lot of those contracts. And I tell you what, the money has to be given out. But the reason why it's not given out to us is because we're not asking.
Interesting. I apologize to the panel. I apologize to everyone in the room. The conversation has been so robust. I had intended to ask one final question to go round robin, but we don't have that kind of time. But I'd like to, I feel like I'm at the legislature now. I cover it every day, but I'd like to see the final few minutes I have to Deborah Hurston, who is the executive director of ABEP, for final thoughts and reflections, and to set us up for the next meeting like this, where we can help people in our community. Deborah?
Thank you so much. First, before I do that, I want to thank all of you, all of our panelists, for this amazingly insightful discussion. I can't tell you how much I appreciate everything that you shared, and trust me, look for part two. This was so good, and there's so much that you guys left on the table just because of time, and I think we just need to do it again. And I do want to take a moment, because First Independence is in the room. I also would like to let our audience know that Daniel Johnson, who is the CEO designee for the first Black credit union in Minnesota, is also in the room. And we are looking forward to him joining you all in this discussion. And I also want to put the spotlight on my staff. The team who put this all together. I just got to sit here and enjoy it. And thank you, ladies, for that. And Benson, who's also on the credit union board. And that's Aida Burks, Ladina Posey. And I don't believe that Sarah's here, but Benson Webb, who's also on the credit union board. I helped bring this whole program together. And so with that, we'll take a look at the next programs coming up. The next program in March. And so we, at that point, and we touched on a little bit today, we'll be looking at credit uses and abuses. And we'll have someone from Bremer Bank and others, I believe Exodus Lending, and someone who's going to be heading up our Financial Empowerment Center joining us for that discussion. We also are still in the process of getting the credit union chartered. And so here's where we need your help. We need you to go on our website, on ABEP's website, and pledge your support for the credit union. This will be Minnesota's first Black-led community credit union. This credit union is what the community asked for, and we're delivering that. And by you taking that pledge, even if you support a bank like First Independence Bank, which, by the way, is from my hometown of Detroit, I'm very familiar with it, very good institution, but there's room for more. And so you can pledge your support to the credit union and let the regulators know that it is necessary. And you can do that by taking a picture of that QR code or going directly to our website to do that. And lastly, I would absolutely like to thank our host, Freddie Bell. Freddie, we could not do this without you. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't even attempt it without you. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome. It's a pleasure to being with everyone here. And we're at time. I'm going to toss it right back to you, Deborah, for a final thought and to adjourn us this evening.
We will be, thank you. We will have the video of this on our website, and I think it's going to take about a week for us to get everything all pulled together. So if you would like to share it with others, please don't hesitate to go to the website and then send it flying all over, and encourage others to sign up for the future programs that we'll have too. And we're always interested in ways that we can make this better. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me or the staff and let us know your thoughts about how we can improve upon this. One of the things that's really critical for me, what I want to do is to change the way we spend our money. Money is power, and I think we should use it that way. We should be very intentional about how we use that power and not give it away so quickly. And so I do want to revisit this conversation because I do want to leave people with tools on how you can have those tough conversations with people about how they spend their money, why they spend that money, and what it means to the bigger group if we all are speaking with our voices on how we release that money. And so thank you again, and trust me, there will be a part 2 to this. I think we have more work to do.
All right. James Holmes Jr., Nancy Corsa, also Abel Abani, and Vachelle Hudson. Thank you so much for being with us. And I'll leave you with today's words of the wise. You're richer than you realize. I'll see you on the radio.